this is a presentation which is based on an audit in which we looked at how well we as a hospital comply with the ATLS protocol during our trauma calls. So this was actually done during my time at Darent Valley Hospital. And this is a district general hospital here in the UK. So in order for us to understand the importance of this protocol, I think it's helpful to consider where ATLS actually comes from. And I think most of us are somewhat familiar with the origin of it already. So we know that it was established some years after an incident in the 70s involving an orthopedic surgeon in a plane crash, and that resulted in the death of his wife and critical injuries to his children. So essentially, he noticed insufficiencies in the management of them as trauma cases, and then this led to this system change. And we know that this is now accepted as a standard of care worldwide. So in itself, it's a standardized approach to reliably managing trauma patients in an organized manner. So Darent Valley Hospital in itself, it's not a trauma center, but regardless, we do have patients presenting to us who fulfill the trauma call criteria. So it only makes sense that these patients are managed as per the protocol. So very simply, we had two aims. One, we wanted to assess the compliance of our trauma calls at this hospital to see how well we comply with the ATLS guidelines. And then we also wanted to measure the opinions of allied health professionals on what they felt of our trauma calls. So our methods, we looked at the notes of trauma calls within a year-long period, and this generated 47 set of notes. And through these, we noted the documentation of each variable. So we looked at a whole list of these. We started from whether there was actually a pro forma present for these patients. And then we went through looking at the demographics. We also looked at whether the primary survey was complete and whether it was completed to full. And then also whether the secondary survey was done, whether there was a clear plan in the end, and a few other factors listed here. And then in addition to that, we wanted an understanding of the team members' opinions of how well these trauma calls are run. So we developed this anonymized questionnaire, which we distributed to team members. So these team members included people who would be present at these trauma calls. So emergency department doctors, ED nurses, general surgery, orthopedics, and ITU. And we found here in our results that a fifth of the time there was actually no trauma call pro forma present for these patients. In almost half of cases, there was no identifiable leader running the trauma call. And when looking at the documented attendance of team members, it seemed that there was a major delay in them arriving. In some cases, or in many cases, there was no documentation of any team member arriving, although that wasn't actually the case because there was documentation in the pro forma, but there was just no stated time for them to have arrived. And when looking at the documentation of the primary survey, we considered the different components. This section here shows that we do begin to tail off as we go from D to E, so looking at disability and exposure. Secondary survey was carried out in only half of cases, and we know that this can lead to missed injuries. And also a clear plan was only documented in half of the cases. And then moving on to the comments generated from the questionnaires that we gave out, there was general agreement that there was often no clear structure to these calls, and that throughout the call, there's often no leader actually running it. Many people that completed these questionnaires suggested that there should be a development of a short sort of ATLS training program from which they could benefit, and they felt that this could really help during these trauma calls. There was also a repeated emphasis on throughout feedback that there was a delay in obtaining the pro forma, because at the moment in this hospital, the pro forma is actually electronically, it needs to be accessed electronically and then printed, and that can take time. And in that time, much of the information is missed because the primary survey usually has already been done. So In order to address this, we have suggested some interventions, and some of these have actually already been rolled out. We feel that a basic ATLS program should be generated, and this doesn't need to be sort of a thorough ATLS training program as is the actual official ATLS course, but just something so that everyone has an understanding of what they should be doing and why we're doing it. We feel that they should be clear identifiers worn by the team, by the key members, because in the questionnaires that we gave out, many people said that they turn up to the trauma call and weren't aware of who was doing what and who belonged to which team. Another thing that we've suggested is to have the pro formas pre-printed and in color, so that this makes it easier for them to be available and be filled out. And then we hope to re-audit this in 6 months. So like I said, we've already rolled out some of these interventions, and we'll be having a look at how well we are now complying with the protocol in just 2 months' time. Thank you.